Right then, thank you, Simon. And I think if that is all right with everybody, we are just after 7 o'clock. And if everybody hears me, I think we will make a start. So, good evening, gentlemen, and everyone who's joined us this evening, and welcome to the Outdoor Lads AGM 2020 digital edition. So thank you everyone who is joined the call this evening for what is Outdoor Lads' first proper digital AGM, and I believe what is potentially going to be our largest ever event turnout for an AGM to date. So a big thank you on behalf of the board for everyone who's taken the time to join this evening. 12 months ago, for those who joined us in London, we actually made an amendment to our governing documents that gave us the option, should we ever wanted to in the future, to run a AGM digitally if we thought that was going to be the best way to run an AGM, and who knew that a global pandemic would actually mean that we have to use this functionality in the future. So here we are. And I think it's probably fair to say what a 12 months it has been since we were last together in London for the AGM. We started off, I think, the year with some pretty bold ideas of what the group and what the charity wanted to achieve in 2020 with an events programme that ran a lot more events than we ever hoped for, and lots of exciting ideas about how we can get out more. But ultimately, the global events took over us, and here we are. And we'll be talking a little bit more about what the impact of COVID-19 has in the future, of what that will be for Outdoor Lads later on this evening. It's fair to say that what has happened with COVID-19 and the situation that we find ourselves in has thrown some unique challenges, not necessarily unique to Outdoor Lads that the rest of the world is going through, but given the fact that Outdoor Lads runs outdoor activity and participation-based stuff, we suffered somewhat badly when the lockdown happened. Again, we'll be talking about that later. But this evening is also about celebrating what we have achieved over the last 12 months, both in terms of the events that we've run and also our wonderful leaders and members that we'll be celebrating a bit later on. So Simon, if we can move on to the next slide. So what brings us all here, and what do we hope to get out of the meeting this evening? So firstly is to dispatch our legal obligations as a membership body. So on a few times this evening we will be voting on a number of things. So we'll be asking you to vote from the minutes of last year's AGMs and to accept the audited accounts from 2019-20, and then voting for our trustees. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Secondly is to celebrate the wonderful community of members and leaders that we have. Later on, Neil will be talking about the wonderful work that our leaders have done and how we've done in that field. I think we can't get through this evening without talking about some of the challenges that Outdoor Lads face for the rest of this year and most likely going into 2021. So we'll be covering COVID-19 in a later section this evening. Fourthly, is to give confidence. This is your chance, as ever at the AGM, to ask questions and hold the trustees accountable for the things that we say and do. And we hope at the end of this presentation that we give you confidence that the trustees are still taking the organisation in the right direction. And then finally is to inspire, so that hopefully maybe for those of you who are new to the organisation, or for those who are maybe thinking about maybe becoming a leader or maybe getting involved, that actually this is something that you might like to do. So, Simon, move us on to the next slide, please. So the agenda this evening and what we're going to be covering. So we will be giving you a welcome, as we've done so far, and our housekeeping and how tonight's meeting is going to run. As we are in digital form, and it's sometimes quite difficult to see each other, we'll be doing a short introduction video that we've pre-recorded from our board and staff, so that everyone knows who everybody is. We'll then move through our annual performance, so how we did in 2019 going into 20. And we'll then talk about Outdoor Lads' response to COVID-19 and what we will hopefully be doing for the rest of the year and some of the challenges that we face. We then move on to some of the formal governance sections of the meeting. So we'll be giving you a few updates in terms of the trustee board, and then we'll move into the finance review and the elections. We'll finish up on what's going to be our aims for the future. any other business, so that's a chance for members to ask any other questions that we haven't covered already. And then most likely my favourite bit of the evening, which is our awards. So that's what we're going to be covering tonight. All of your documents for the AGM can be found on the AGM webpage. So you should find an agenda for the meeting, the accounts that we'll be voting on later, the minutes of the AGM from last year in London, and the trustee manifesto packs that, again, you'll be voting on later on tonight. Simon, let's move us on, please. So, online format then. This is a bit new, so, back we go, Simon. So this is going to be how this evening is going to be run. So for those who are absolute Zoom experts, all the Zoom functionality should be pretty straightforward to you. Throughout the meeting this evening, you can ask questions in the question and answer section, which you can find between participants and chat on the bottom of the Zoom screen. Simon, who's kind of creating this evening, and Liam will select some questions throughout the presentation. We'll put it to myself or whoever's going to be presenting from the trustee board. Now, we are on a reasonably tight time this evening so that we don't keep you here for all evening. If we can't get around to answering your questions or we don't know the answer, any question that anyone puts in the Q&A section, we are going to be publishing the response online with the minutes of the AGM. If anyone would like to speak this evening, that's absolutely fine. We are able to select a couple of participants to join. And the way in which you can either ask a question, you can write in the chat function box. So that's the one between Q&A and chat. I'd like to ask a verbal question. So you can write that, or you can raise your virtual hand. That I'm not 100% how you do that, so maybe we'll have to defer to Simon, and we will be able to select a few speakers to ask questions as we go along. Again, if we can't answer your question, we'll put it in the notes of the minutes afterwards. So in terms of the voting, when we get to some of the voting sections this evening, those who are joined as participants and not observers, there will be a box that will materialise on your screen, and it will give you the chance to vote for, against or abstain for the items that we'll be voting on this evening. So almost like a Eurovision style vote, I will dispatch Simon to go and turn the voting function on, and then you'll have this pop-up box that is coming on the screen. The AGM is being recorded this evening. So for those who can't make it or would like to listen to things that we've talked about, this meeting is going to be recorded. So that means people will have access to it after the meeting. If you would like to ask a question but you don't want to appear on the video, that's absolutely fine. Please put your email the support team at the OutdoorLads office, and they will sort you out. It's also fair to say, before we move on to the main agenda item tonight, this is the first time we've done this AGM. Throughout this evening, there'll be different trustees speaking, and at different points, we've got to hand over the virtual talking stick to different members of trustees. So there might be a few moments that are quite similar to Eurovision, when they cut to Belarus and none of the presenters can hear each other, and it's all incredibly awkward. So grab a drink and just bear with us if it all gets a little bit cringy during some of the transition bits. So please do bear with us. And I think that's probably all of the housekeeping things that we're going to have to run through. Oh, one thing just before we move on to the first item, there is a few videos that we have pre-recorded for tonight. And we're going to be streaming them both using the Zoom webinar, but we're also going to be publishing the YouTube links in the chat function. So if you want to watch the video, because either it's not streaming brilliantly, or you'd much rather watch it on YouTube, keep an eye on the chat function, and we will publish the YouTube links in there as we go along. Right, I think that's everything in terms of housekeeping and online format. So, first item on the agenda formally then is the welcome video. So, Simon, if I can hand over to you, please, to fire up the welcome video.
Hi everyone.
Thank you very much for joining Outdoor Lads' first digital AGM. My name is Matt Tennant and I am the chair of the trustee board. I've been a trustee of Outdoor Lads since 2013 and this is my first year as chairman.
Hi there, my name's Danny. I've been a trustee now for 5 years and a member of Outdoor Lads for 13 years.
Hey guys, I'm Neil. I've been a member of Outdoor Lads for 11 years and I've been on the board of trustees for 3.5 years.
Hello, my name's Stephen. I'm one of the founding members of Outdoor Lads and I've been a trustee for about 14 or 15 years.
Hi, I'm Simon. I joined Outdoor Lads over 10 years ago now, and I joined the board as a co-opted member back in January of this year.
Hello, my name's Liam. I'm the programme manager here at Outdoor Lads. So I've been in that job for 3 years now, and I've been a member for 5.
Hi, I'm Ted. I've been Treasurer of ODL for a year, and I've been a member since 2017.
Good evening all. My name is Jimmy Brash and I've been a member of the fabulous Outdoor Lads community for the last 4 years. I've been a board member for the last 12 months.
Hi, I'm Dan. I've been a member of Outdoor Lads for 3 years and working as the Membership Engagement Officer since February.
Hi, I'm Danny. I've been a member of Outdoor Lads now for just over 5 years and I've been on the Board of Trustees for just over 1.5 years.
Hi, my name's Yvonne. I've been working for Outdoor Lads for I think nearly 3 years now. I'm the Financial and Administration Assistant.
Hi, I'm Dan. I've been a member at Outdoor Lads now for 4.5 years and I've been a trustee for the last 2.
Hi, I'm Fergus Brunning. I've been a trustee for 1 year and a member for 7 years.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Simon. So I hope you all found that useful. If you didn't know a few faces from the Outdoor Lads board and staff, I hope you know them now. Right then, so we're going to move on. A slight change in the agenda from the documents that you have had online. We're actually going to do our first act of governance this evening, and it's going to be approving the AGM minutes from 2019 in London. Before we move on then, and again, this is people's first opportunity if you'd like to ask any questions, either in the question and answer section, the chat, or raise your hand. Does anybody who was in the AGM or watched it last year have any questions or challenges for the minutes from the AGM in London?
And Matt, we have 2 questions already in the Q&A.
Okay, so there's a question from Wilco, which is that the vote to accept the accounts was not recorded from 2 individuals who apparently abstained on the vote for the minutes for last year. That's hopefully not a problem. We can get those amended and changed. So if we can record that as an action, please, Yvonne, to find out what votes were missed from the minutes for last year, but that's absolutely fine. We can get that changed. Okay. Okay, so we've got a follow-up question here from Wilco, who said in the minutes for last year, the vote to accept the account was not recorded in the notes at all. So again, can we make sure that's a priority to get that looked at and addressed, please, if the recording is not there? But that's not a problem. We can make the amendment if that has not been recorded properly. Okay, any other questions before, or any other challenges to the minutes from last year? No? Okay, so how this is going to work, everybody, we will need a proposer and seconder. So this is somebody who's happy to put forward that the minutes from last year to be approved. So in terms of the easiest way of doing this, if anyone would like to propose the motion, if anyone would like to enter their name in the Zoom webinar chat. So if I could ask for a proposer of the minutes from last year, if someone wants to enter their name in the Zoom webinar chat. Tim Houston, thank you very much, Tim. Tim will be down as the proposer of the motion. And can we have a seconder, please? John Corley, thank you very much, John. First in off the bat there. So proposer Tim, seconder John Corley. Simon, if you could fire up, please, the poll that everyone will be able to vote on? Right, everybody.
You all now have access to it.
Thank you, Simon. So hopefully on everyone's screen, we'll have the motion to approve the minutes of the AGM 2019. So please, can you cast your ballots accordingly? And I'll just give you a few moments to do that. All right, we'll just give that another couple of seconds for people a chance to cast their ballots. Right then, Simon, I think we'll call it there. So are you able to publish the results for me? Okay, excellent. So we have had so it's 80 people voting for. We have had no against, and we have had 22 abstentions. So the motion carries. Thank you very much. That is the minutes of the AGM from last year approved with the amendments, which we'll make sure that we have done. Great. Thank you, Simon. If you can move us on to the next slide, please. So, AGM, our review of 2020. So let's begin with talking about how we've done in the last 12 months. And I think it's fair to say 2020 has thrown a number of challenges, and I think will probably be remembered by both everybody here as ODL and indeed everybody who's lived through the situation that we find ourselves in as a particularly challenging year. But we're not going to talk about COVID-19 for the moment. We're going to have a look firstly to see how Outdoor Lads has done event-wise from the last AGM. So Simon, if we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So here is how we've done up until essentially lockdown happened on the 23rd of March. So normally at the AGM each year, we talk about how the events, how we've done from AGM to AGM in terms of our event numbers. So slightly different from the numbers that you might see in the annual accounts, because the annual account numbers for the events is up until the end of the financial year. So this slide looks at how Outdoor Lads has done event-wise up until when lockdown happened. And we'll just spend a little bit of time looking at how we've done here. Obviously, when we look at the numbers on this slide, it looks obviously that we've not done as well as we've done in previous years. Main reason for that is because normally each year, as I said, we report till August, but this year we've drawn the line here at when lockdown hit. So let's firstly have a look with climbing. So you can see here that we, up until March last year, we ran 376 events, which is just shy of 100 events of how we did for the entirety of last year. And of course, it's slightly tricky, and we'll come on to this in the next slide about how we would have done should COVID-19 happen, but we were definitely on track to meet the number of climbing events that we ran for the previous year. Again, if we have a look at the number of walks and runs that we did as a charity, we were only 85 short of what we had done in the entirety leading up to April last year when we finished it. So again, because actually how Outdoor Lads would have done if we had continued running our events program. In terms of teams and social events, up until March last year, we were doing very well, in fact. So up until March, we had run 194 of those events. So we were only a couple of shy even when March happened. So again, I think we did really very, very well performance-wise in that area there. Cycling, we were at 75, so again, not too bad in that area. Hostels and camping, one of the things we'll talk about a bit later is that last year there was quite a big drive to put more camping and hostel events on. So you can see up until March, we were only 6 events behind by the time when we had to pull all the events at lockdown. So again, we were doing quite well in that regard. So that's a bit of a snapshot until up and when lockdown happened, how we were doing. Simon, next slide, please. So Here are the number of events that, as a result of COVID-19, Outdoor Lads had to pull. This is an estimate because obviously the conversations that people were having with their coordinators about events that they would have liked to have done, people who have completely cancelled or postponed. So when we looked at our data, we estimated that we had to cancel roughly, this was when lockdown occurred, about 315 events that we had to pull when Outdoor Lads made that decision back in the spring. And if you divide those numbers up across the different areas there, broadly in some areas we would have done very, very well. Other areas we would have brought up to where we would have been had it been a regular year, and indeed with hostels and camping we would have well exceeded what we had done on the previous year. So cancelling 350 events was a significant impact to our event programme, and again that's one of the things that Danny will talk about later in terms of what the impact was to Outdoor Lads. Next slide please, Simon. So this is the number of event places that we had for the slightly, again, because of these slides take us till the end of March. Take that with, as it comes, because obviously with their events being run, we wouldn't know what would their participant levels have been going forward. And again, in some areas broadly, even up until March, we were doing very well with our participant numbers. Walks again were slightly down, but thinking actually all the events that we would have run from March to August, and indeed in certain things we were much closer. So actually our camping and hostel numbers were slightly down on last year, and Ted will talk about what the impact of that has been on the paid events in his slide later. Okay, Simon, if you could move us on please. I think that's the end of how we've done event-wise last year. So we're going to, our first trustee presentation this evening is going to be about our annual performance in terms of how we've done from the members survey and our annual survey that we run every single year. So I'm going to hand the magic virtual talking stick over to Dan Barcroft, who's going to take us through this segment.
Hello. I just want to run through some of the results of the survey that so many of you filled out over the summer. But I want to start with the board met at its annual away kind of weekend in January, and one of the first things we did was to just kind of explore some of that mission and vision about what it is that we're absolutely crystal clear that we're here to do as a charity. And we refreshed the mission, and you can see that on your screens now, to get more gay, bi and trans guys into the outdoors. And I think we felt that that was much more succinct and really kind of should be at the heart of everything that we do and should shape our future strategy and direction moving forward. Next slide, please. Just to highlight some successes, and I think as we will talk about later, what's really interesting is that this has obviously been a really challenging time for an organisation that A, is outdoors, and B, involves getting people together. And those are early on in this period, those were two things that we just weren't allowed to do. And yet, when you look at some of the highlights that are on your screen now, when people have responded to how they feel that the impact that Outdoor Lads has had, it's actually very, very positive. And I think that whilst, no one wants to say that as any organisation that, we're 100% perfect, we're not. We've still got work to do, we know that. But I think if I remember delivering these slides last year and talking about the increase on the year before, and I think when you start to see some of these markers and these metrics about just how well we are doing, actually it is quite positive. I think for me, the thing that really sticks out is about people that have said that they feel more energised and positive after an Outdoor Lads event. Now, bearing in mind that certainly for a good third of the period that this survey covers, those events were not outdoors. They were stay-in more events when we were, in the depths of a lockdown like the country had never seen before, and we were isolated both from each other and from our families and friends, etc. So actually, that for me really sticks out and just, I think, epitomises the power of Outdoor Lads. And I think, you know, no matter the various, you know, I've been a member for 4 years, and I think that, you know, we all have times where we're feeling not quite, you know, as though going out and meeting or engaging with those events is a challenge. Actually, it shows that when we do, there is that Outdoor Lads magic there, and I think that that's really important. I think for me, the fact that people have still feel a part of a community, and that we've managed to at least keep that community going virtually and digitally is again a massive strength. You know, we are, you know, a small charity. We're not some large organisation that can, you know, invest millions or thousands in advertising and nice things, and yet we've still managed to keep that community, and I think that's a real positive as well. And I think that, you know, a real credit is the fact that more people now feel that Outdoor Lads is professionally run, and I think that's a real credit to our leaders, who I know have done everything from, and we'll know some of the things that they've done, from lunchtime meets to gardener's question time and other things as well. So I think for me, the successes there, we should celebrate those. Regardless, the picture that what our members have told us is that overall we are being successful and we are still having impacts, and I think that's really critical. Can we move on to the next slide, please? It's just like being that Professor Chris Whitty when you say next slide, please, by the way. I want to now run through some of the testimonials, and I personally find these moving, I find them insightful, and I find them quite, they resonate a lot, I think, because I think you will recognise in some of these, you will recognise in these testimonials, actually, that there's lots of, I'm sure there'll be parts of it that we all identify with. And we've got there about helping to give confidence to come out to family and friends, and we all, you know, the majority of us will have been through that journey at some point. And I think the fact that as an organisation we've supported somebody through that very difficult time of finding yourself, etc., is you know, you make a difference on one person like that, and it's really, really powerful. And I think that for me, that's a massive success, that somebody feels very strongly about that. Simon, could you put all of the different, thank you. I think they'll let you read some of those for yourself while I just briefly go over the details. But I think that for me, that the sentiments around acceptance, the sentiments around the longevity of Outdoor Lads, and how even, you know, after 10 years, people can't imagine life without us. And again, it's been a really horrific year for everyone, yet people still feel knitted to this community. And I know that's something that, you know, I and other leaders and board members I know are particularly proud of, that we're able to come back to this community and see the fantastic impact and moving impact that it has. I think that one thing that we should also draw out on there is about having new friends and networks from all around the country, and I think that's been particularly important this year when we've been able to utilise virtual technology as we're doing tonight, to make sure that we keep in contact with all those people and to keep those networks live. You know, we are a national organisation, we're not just limited to our regions, and I think that's really powerful as well. Can I have the next slide, please? So these ones we picked out because we feel this is where we've still got work to do. And I think, you know, I'll allow people to digest what those have said, and it just gives a flavour of some of the things that came out to us that we do still need to do more thinking of. I think the first in the top left there around BAME leadership, more inclusive language and events, and especially to those not male identifying or neither, we need to really look at how we widen that inclusion. And I know that the board have discussed this at their last meeting about how we go about doing that. We need to make sure that everyone feels a part of Outdoor Lads. And I think if you look at the quote below around social groups, etc., I think we've probably all identified that when we were new to Outdoor Lads, we kind of had that vision of standing on the outskirts and looking in, and then before you know it, the Outdoor Lads kind of sweeps you up, and you find yourself forming a group of friends or establishing a group of friends. And I think we've all been guilty of perhaps being blind to the people that are then new and are standing on the outside looking in. And I think whilst we need to think about that as a charity about how we structure events, etc., I think actually there's some learning in there for us all to do about how we extend that branch of friendship to those that are new, so as we keep that kind of inclusion and that involvement even when we've got established groups. I think that there are suggestions there for us to do more epic adventures and multi-day activities and things. And again, we'd love to. I mean, for one, I'd just love to get back to doing the disco, but we've got to wait. And obviously, we don't know. In fact, there could even be an announcement whilst we're doing this presentation tonight. So we've got to think about the future, and I think we do have to think about how we improve and make that kind of try new things as Outdoor Lads. But equally, I know that many of you will want to get back to doing what it is that we do best when we're most able. So I think then if we move on to the next slide, and I'll be handing over to Neil, I think now. But can I just say a massive thank you to everyone that took the time to fill out that survey, and also if you did take time to put in a personal reflection about the impacts that we've had on you. We've all read on the board, we've all read every single one, and thank you for everyone's honesty and for sharing some of those reflections with us, because they really are quite humbling, so thank you.
Just before we move on, we've got a couple more questions that have shown up. If they can just be quickly reviewed, and whether or not we're going to answer them directly or if they're going to be typed in, please.
Okay. Thank you, Simon. There's a couple of questions that we'll have. So we've got a question from Aaron, which is around, we do a lot of indoor sports and social events. Did we design our updated mission statement to promote outdoor activities over indoor activities more? I think I'll happily answer that. In answer to your question is no. Outdoor Lads has at its heart always been an outdoor pursuits organisation. Walks, activities, camping, hostels, but that is absolutely, the mission statement is 100% not to exclude the indoor events that we run. So that is absolutely not the case, that we are choosing to prioritise in the future indoor event over outdoor event activities. So Alan, I hope that answers that question for you. There's a question from Mike about membership price freeze, and if that's okay, Mike, I think I'm going to park that question until we get to the finance section, if that's okay. There's a question from Wilco, which is around, should at some point Outdoor Lads start thinking about the name of the group, and whether or not does actually that needs to be maybe modernised for the population that we're in. I think I would answer that question that we haven't had a huge amount of feedback either way to whether or not we should or we shouldn't. And I'm never going to say never in terms of what Outdoor Lads wants to do in the future. Where we reach a point where we receive a lot of feedback that actually we do need to broaden the purpose and the thing of Outdoor Lads, we may consider it at that point. I think at this particular stage, I haven't heard, and I don't think any of the trustees have heard en masse feedback that is something that we should be legitimately considering at this point. So again, I'm going to say never, but I haven't yet heard the feedback that this is something that we should be doing at this stage, at that stage there. Okay.
If we could just take the last one there, Matt, and then everyone else will respond to by text, if that's all right for the moment, just so we can move on.
Thank you, Simon. Which question is that, sorry?
There's one there from Timothy Healy. He says he's been a member for over 10 years and feels that if he lived in more of an urban hub, he'd be able to make more friends. Is there any advice on creating social networks for people not living in the main cities through Outdoor Lads?
Maybe I'm going to be jumping on Neil's parade on this, but I think one of the things that people can think about doing if they're thinking that Outdoor Lads doesn't have a big a group of members in that area is to simply become a leader. And I think if you start thinking about maybe becoming a leader, becoming a social leader, and again, I'm not going to tread too much in Lee's territory, but becoming a social leader is incredibly straightforward to do. It's one of the easiest leaders categories that we can make you being. And as a result of that, to start bringing in potentially events to your area, if you don't think ODL does a lot of stuff in that particular region. But again, Neil, I might leave that one to you if that's all right, in terms of the best way to start thinking about bringing ODL into regions that are not in the city. So thank you very much for everyone's questions, and thank you for Dan for taking us through that section there. If we haven't got around to answering your questions, like I said, we'll do our best to respond to them. So Neil, if it's okay, I'm going to hand over to you to take us through how we've done with our volunteer leaders.
Lovely segue, thank you. And obviously, the good news is that Tim is actually one of our leaders in training at the moment. So hopefully he'll be able to partly answer his own questions as he moves forward. So hi everybody, I'm Neil. I usually start off the AGM with a great big round of applause for all the leaders in the room. I was trying to work out the best way that I could do that this time, and the only way I could do it was to actually employ the power of the GIF and to load some of those into a slide. But what I would always be saying at the start is the fact that leaders are the lifeblood of the organisation. They make it happen. They dedicate their time. They dedicate their evenings. They dedicate their Saturdays, their Sundays, their weekends, and sometimes even their weeks. So, you know, if there's one thing I always want to get across in these AGM sessions, it's the fact that we just always need to remember to be really, really grateful for the input and the time that people dedicate towards this, and just say thank you as much as we can. Next slide, please, Simon. So there's been some changes in the regional teams. For those who are new to Outdoor Lads, you know, you might not be aware of the fact that the country is split into sections, so that we can basically have kind of regional hubs and teams of people headed up by a regional coordinator in each of those regions, and then also teams of organisers in those regions, depending on the size of it. So in the Northwest, over the past 12 months, there's been some changes in terms of who's basically looking after the teams. Firstly, we need to make sure that we say a big thank you to Andy Renshaw, because of the fact that at the beginning of this year, he stepped down as the regional walks organiser for the North West and North Wales. So again, if we were doing this in a room, I'd say big round of applause for Andy. Maybe we can all see some kind of like, you know, some online hand clapping there for him. But that led about some changes as well. So Mark got the opportunity to bring some new people into the Northwest and North Wales team. So Brian Cosgrove has taken over the organiser role for mountain walks, and Stephen's taken over for doing that for leisure and lowland. So basically you've got two powerhouses of walking, basically looking after the entire Northwest and North Wales region. But then recently, after a move up to the Lake District, just in case no one knows about that, everyone seems to, but Peter has moved into the role of supporting the Lake District region as an organiser, because the Lake District is one of our most visited, well-trodden areas for Outdoor Lads. And the idea was born that Peter would basically look after that region from a multi-activity point of view. So great new team members in the Northwest and North Wales team there joining Mark. One of the strategic points that I'll come on to in the moment, next slide please, Simon, is the fact that the North is like the South. It's massive, it's huge. And until, you know, earlier on this year, the North was basically looked after one team of people. And one of the things that we've been looking at for a while was the fact that that's probably not the best way to manage it. And one of our kind of white space areas around the UK was definitely the Northeast. So the action was taken to split the North into two halves, Northwest and North Wales, and then Northeast. So Steve Henderson is heading up the team in the Northeast region as the regional coordinator. And then we have Dave and Rob and Tim all looking after different parts of that. So Dave is looking after the social and leisure, Rob is the hostel and camping and mountain, and Tim is looking after the socials and leisure walks. So a big thank you to those guys for coming on board. I know that there's lots of energy sparking here amongst these guys in terms of what they can do. Can they get new leaders on board? Can we grow the region? And can we make it really exciting for members in the Northeast as well? So, leader numbers, where are we at? Well, the good news is we're actually really relatively flat. In fact, I actually think that there's been 2 more leaders who have come on board since this slide was produced about a week ago. But 283 leaders, volunteers around the UK who are really kind of putting all the effort in. The good news is as well, there's 80 leader applications in flight. It's a nice problem to have because of the fact that this number would usually be a lot lower because we'd be moving through them a lot quicker. We haven't had the opportunity to develop leaders and to assess them because we just haven't been able to get out. And of course, our biggest bottleneck is hostel leaders. We have a number of people who are desperate to become hostel leaders, and we just haven't had any hostels to firstly take them to give them the opportunity to lead, but then to set them up with doing the assessments as well. So one of our things to look at for next year when we become free of the handcuffs of COVID is how we can basically get those hostel leaders together, potentially take them away on a residential weekend in the north and one in the south, so that we can start to get those leaders coming through. But 283 plus 80 is a big number. I would have always liked to have seen that number go above 300. Hopefully by this time next year when we're at the AGM, we'll be looking at a much higher number as well. But we need you. The organisation, even more than ever, needs volunteers, or it's going to need volunteers, because of the fact that to protect the longevity of Outdoor Lads, to keep the energy going, to keep new people coming on board, to keep creating exciting events, to keep looking into those regions around the UK where we just haven't quite cracked it yet. Some of those white spaces where, particularly East Anglia and places like that, where you have this kind of rhythm of people going, oh, there's nothing in my region, and that's because there's no leaders in the region. But if we could get leaders in the region, then there's a pretty good chance we then start to get members. And having seen it happen myself, I'm acutely aware of the fact that all it takes is 1 or 2 people to really start kind of, tapping that nut. And all of a sudden you have a blossoming region in the UK that has, a bunch of leaders and a bunch of members, and everybody's having a great time. So we really do need you. So if you've ever thought during lockdown, or you've basically been sat there bored out with your brains wondering what you could do, or you found new footpaths near you that you never knew existed, or you've driven past a campsite that you thought looked absolutely fantastic, or you've spotted a bunkhouse somewhere that you don't think ODL has ever been to before, we need you, basically. Next slide, please, Simon. And then just to kind of highlight the difference that it can make. So 1,561 paid members at the moment. That includes both full and concession members. And within that, we have 283 volunteer leaders, which is about 18% of our paid membership, which is good, but it could be better. If we could just increase that by 10%, if we could just increase the number of volunteers by 10%, and each of those volunteers led an average of about 2 events a year. Because if you look at day walks as the example, all we ask you to do is lead 2 walks in a year. Obviously, if you end up leading more, fantastic. But as you can see, that number quickly rolls up. So, we would be looking at an extra 300 plus events going into the diary around the country and potentially into different regions every single year. And just in case you've never seen this section on the website, here's a grab of it for you. So all you have to do is go onto the homepage, click into the About Us section, and there's a section in there talking about becoming a leader. There's a couple of videos. I think there's still one of me doing a walk leader assessment, which hopefully makes it look very fun for people. But that's there as a resource. It's also there where you can apply. But if you have questions, you can ask your regional team, you can email one of the boards, you can email the support team. There are lots of different ways to find out how to go about this. And, leaders, like members, like the whole organization, we've been weathering COVID. We've been trying to work out what we do when we can't do the things that we know and love. That rhythm of you know, the walks and the events and the hostels and the camps and the climbs and all those things we would have done over the summer have basically meant a lot of people have sat there and they've felt like it's become very stagnant for us and equally very frustrating at the same time. Next slide, please, Simon.
Neil, just quickly, while just goes back to something you said previously. We've got a question there, which I think you might be able to answer for us live.
Where is it?
So the question is, why does it take so long to become a leader?
Is there a particular kind of activity that we do that prompts that question? Because if you're talking about hostel leading, it can take a long time purely because of the fact that it's about the location of the hostel, it's about where the member is, it's about who we can partner them with. And generally that tends to be the same problem around the UK. So if you look at walk leading, it's another one where sometimes it's about where is the person who wants to lead and where is the person who can help them with the training and help them with the assessment. But if you want to get in touch and discuss that with one of us individually, very happy to pick that up with you. Okay, thank you, Simon.
And next slide.
But the good news was, during COVID, while we were weathering that storm, our leaders far from sat on their asses. In fact, we have seen some really exciting things that have happened. Obviously, Stay In More was born. You'll hear more about that a bit later on. But, you know, in terms of two of the things that really, you know, leaders got on board with, sorry, Simon, I put some builds into these slides. They probably weren't the most helpful, were they? We had 260 events led by 26 leaders for Stay In More. So lots of different event types. You'll see us talk about the detail of that more later on. But also very much kind of, you know, backstage, walking leaders have created over 200 walks, and they are now sitting on the Outdoor Lads website ready to go. So 63 leaders created over 200 what we're calling Back with a Bang events. Now, Back with a Bang was something that I think we were probably hoping would have happened by now. It certainly took a lot of effort by the leaders in the spring to think of these walks, plan these walks, find images for these walks, load all that stuff onto the website. But the good news is it's there and ready to go. We have an army of walks ready for leaders to lead, and also ready for, you know, regional coordinators to dish out to leaders and share around. So we're in a really great position for when we can actually get out and get walking again. But then it's also change on the board. So I've been doing this job for 3 years now. Yeah, 3 years since my first AGM. And it's time for a bit of change. And one of the realizations about this role is the fact that it's massive. You know, having nearly 300 volunteers to support, oversee, represent, and to, you know, and to try and help focus everything on behalf of the board is quite a big job, and it's taken up a lot of my time. I'm very proud of everything that I've achieved and really pleased with everything that I've achieved because it's been done with some really awesome people. But my day job is now a lot bigger than it was 3 years ago, so it's time to basically take that need for resource and need for extra representation and to split some of that role. So Danny Ballantyne is going to be taking over on the board to represent the volunteers and leaders, and he's going to be looking after the culture and communication side of things, making sure that leaders are always updated with the most up-to-date information, communicated to through, you know, newsletters, and also sometimes a little bit of policing of the leader Facebook page, but we'll leave that there. But then also, for those who don't know him, Nick is going to be coming on board as a project lead who's going to be looking after volunteer training and development. So for the chap who asked the question earlier on about how we speed up getting people through the process a lot quicker, that's one of the things that Nick will be looking at. And obviously Nick brings a wealth of experience in terms of leading events through his own company, Pride Expeditions. He's certainly a lot more skilled than I am in terms of some of the terrains that he can do and some of the places that he's been and some of the walls that he's climbed. So really pleased to be bringing those two on board. And I'll still be hanging around. So I'll be around for about another 2 months in this role, helping to have a handover so that they can take it all on board. And then I'll be sitting in the wings somewhere on the board up until the end of my 4 years. Thank you, Simon. So at the last AGM, as with every other AGM, I talked about some of the things that we wanted to do with volunteers and leaders. And it's always worth reflecting on what that year has been like. And I spent some time with the regional coordinator team a couple of weeks ago, just going through some of those objectives and some of those ambitions, just to see where we thought we were, because we know we've had a tougher year to be able to land things. I'm pleased to say there's some, there have been some successes, and there's some, some definite things that we still need to do some work on. Splitting the North into 2 manageable parts was the biggest of those. That was the kind of the ambition that I probably had for about 18 months. So we managed to land that. And also making leader recruitment even easier, so enabling volunteers and encouraging new ones to step up, has been helped by the fact that we've had the new website, because applying is now a lot simpler. In terms of delivering training, first aid, navigation and mountain skills, obviously that has been very much hampered by the handcuffs of COVID. And also providing leader recruitment and coaching to current leaders has, it's partly happened, but it hasn't happened in the way that we would have liked it to. So it's definitely one to pick up for next year. We've had some success in certain regions where they've needed it, where we've had regional website champions come on board. So where we have new leaders who come on and they're not quite sure how to load event pages, or we've got some rusty leaders who are not quite sure how to load some event pages, then we've certainly managed to recruit a couple of those. And also there is a lot of resource and there's a lot of experience in the regional coordinator teams in terms of helping people with that. But if that's one of the things that you're looking at and you're thinking, what does this mean? Then that's certainly something that we can help you with. And each region to commit to one big spring clean style event. Obviously, we need to look after our environment and we need to look after our countryside. We wanted to spend some time this spring, this summer, actually getting out there and beach cleaning, litter picking, plogging, whatever it is that we wanted to do. Again, it's something that will just carry over because the ambition is there to do it. So maybe we can even make a weekend of it. Next one, please, Simon. And then finally, it really was the year for doing what we can to improve leader communication. So each of the regions committed to having 2 leader meetings a year where they would actually gather their leaders in their region together so that they could actually talk in person, throw ideas around, discuss the moments that matter and also the things that matter to them in terms of leading. And also the ambition was for the regional coordinators to then follow up with their organisers and make sure that they had dialing meetings with their teams. We did have the ambition of having leaders development away weekend, again, something to go on the back burner because it just wouldn't have happened in the spring and summer. And one of the things that we've started to see the kind of the early signs of, but we definitely need more of it. So again, this is one of those we need you moments, but it's about gathering leader testimonials and content for promoting being a volunteer through our social media channels. We want to hear about your experiences and the fun that you have doing events and the enjoyment that you get out of it. We want you to talk about that to us and hopefully to new members and potentially new volunteers who might have thought, I'm not sure whether I could do that. Well, actually, we want the opportunity to inspire them and to get them into the idea of volunteering and leading for us. Thank you, Simon.
I'm just going to interrupt you there for a moment, Neil. We've had another question which I think is quite pertinent to this. So Gavin's asked us, how can we inspire leaders to lead as well as members to become leaders?
Talk about your own experiences, I think, is the best way to do it, because of the fact that every single leader has been that new person once. Every single leader has been through that experience where they've thought, oh my God, I'm about to be assessed on this. ODL actually want me to do this and they're going to help me through this. And they're going to fill out a form that tells me whether I'm any good at it or not. My personal experiences, my favorite thing to do with leading is walking. And I find the way I engage people, the way I inspire people is just to talk to them very humbly about the fact that once upon a time, I looked at a map and a compass and went, what the fuck is this thing in front of me? And I'm testament to the fact that if I can do this, then anybody can do it. Because when I talk to people and talk to them about how easy it is, how much fun it is, how simple the process is in terms of doing the assessment, hopefully those are the things that inspire them to kind of wake up and go, yeah, do you know what? I'm gonna give it a go. So objectives, obviously there's some things that we're carrying over from the previous year, but the things we really want to concentrate on are volunteer recruitment. So like I said, we need you. More volunteers is really important. Training and development, so bringing Nick on board to make sure that there's a real focus on training and development in the coming year and of course years beyond. Landing back with a bang, so there's no point having over 200 events sitting in the website ready to go if we're not doing something with them. We just need COVID to piss off and let us get on with doing what we know and love. And also getting back to business as usual. I know that sounds like a crazy thing to have as an objective, but that's what we want, certainly what I want. I know it's what all my board colleagues want, and I'm sure it's what all of the leaders out there want. They just want to do what they love doing, and that's doing things and leading events for Outdoor Lads. So, you know, let's get back into the rhythm again. And to all leaders out there, even if you're sitting there thinking, I'm so bored of COVID, I'm over all this, and I'm really not enjoying, you know, kind of lockdown and all those sorts of things, please keep planning. Please scribble things down on a post-it note. Please put things in your notebook. Please write things in your iPhone that inspire you to come up with an event. Because, like I say, we're going to need those events. You know, we're going to get into this point where all of a sudden we're going to be free of all of this, and we're going to need things for people to do. You're going to want to lead, but you know, our members are going to need events to go on. So please just keep planning and keep working with us, because the more we build up, the readier we are to go. As soon as that starting pistol is fired, then we're off into a great new future. And finally, an ambition for this year, which we will carry over, was the fact that we wanted to run mental health awareness training for leaders. We had booked with Mind Out, which is the LGBTQ mental health service based down in Brighton, and we were going to run 3 leader training sessions around the UK. Primarily aimed at hostel and camping leaders initially, because of the fact that those leaders spend the longest period of time with individuals. We really want to look at how we grow our training and awareness around mental health, because of the fact that it's an essential and important part of what we do. And it could also open the door in terms of us partnering with other GBT organisations. So we had some initial conversations around whether we might do some partnerships with perhaps some of the rugby teams or some of the other sports teams around the UK. So everything's play for on that one, and that's one of the ambitions that I will definitely see happen. And that's me done. Any more questions, Simon?
Yes, we've had one more. We've had somebody ask, Mind Out, why only partner with GBT, not L?
The purpose behind that was because of the fact that because Outdoor Lads is a male-based organisation. That's the only answer I have for that. We don't have to do that at all. It was what was put on the slide last year. On reflection, there's no point doing mental health training and doing it with an organisation like Mind Out and removing the L and the Q and the plus and everything else as well. So I will reflect on that slide and amend it for the future. So thank you for asking that.
There is one more that's come up from Ian asking about the number of leader applications and prioritising training for applicants in underrepresented areas. I think I can probably help you with this one as a regional coordinator. One of the pieces of work which Neil and the regional coordinators have been doing is looking at what we call the white space areas, where we've got an underrepresentation of leaders in those areas. Certainly something I'm doing in the Southeast, and I know my colleagues are doing elsewhere in the country, is looking at those and seeing where we have got members we can either help to inspire to become those leaders, or where we can try and fast track applications if possible, bearing in mind obviously COVID and everything Neil's just been talking about.
Yeah, and I think one of the ambitions is to look at how we train people and how we make it easier for people to, you know, particularly in those kind of like, you know, those grey areas of the UK where people want to lead, but they don't necessarily have access to a leader who can help them with the assessment. It's how we look at training weekends. So, you know, I've led quite a few navigation courses where I've helped leaders, you know, learn the basics of navigation. Hopefully there's a few people in this Zoom meeting who've been on one of those. And one of my aspirations is to take that around the country and to work out how we have regional hubs of training, because actually we have a lot of skill in our regions. We have a lot of experience in our regions, particularly within our mountain leading community, who can deliver quite high level training for us. So how do we train them? How do we give them the opportunity to, you know, do the certifications and have the learning that enables them to then take training to hubs around the UK so that people can access it a lot more easily?
Thank you, Neil. Matt, I think you wanted to say something.
No, that's everything from, thank you, Neil, for that section there. I was just going to make, because I'm cautious that we haven't had any questions verbally from any of our audience yet. So if anyone would like to answer a question or put it verbally in the panel this evening. On the bottom of your Zoom screen where you've got participants, you can, if you click, you can see the number of people who are on the panel and on who are the attendees. If you click raise hand, that should put a little hand next to your name, and then Simon and Neil will hopefully pick you to ask a question as we move through the remainder of the slides. So I'm just aware, I mean, if people don't want to ask a verbal question, that's absolutely fine, but the option is there, please, if anyone would like to ask a question as we go along. Right then, thank you, Neil, for that section. We're now going to move on to COVID-19 and the impact that had on Outdoor Lads and what we're doing about it going forward. So I'd like everyone to cast their mind back to March of this year, just before the start of this crisis. And next slide, please, Simon. Here is a picture. This is my first trip to Wasdale Head Hostel. Up in March, and here's a picture of us with a group heading up to the summit of, we tried to make it up to the summit of Scarfell Pike. Simon, if you move on a little bit, you can see you've got, and again, Simon, and again, that's the ticket. Oh, back one. You can see there that you've got Mr. House, your Northwest coordinator. You've got Mr. Tim, Dr. Tim hovering away in the background there, and we've got Dan Blackwell. So that, you know, back at a time when we were doing events all the way back in March. And then obviously, somewhat later, the events took a somewhat dramatic turn of affairs later on in March, and the country was thrown into lockdown and the immediate impact that had on Outdoor Lads directly. So I'm just going to run through some of the immediate actions that we took as an organisation to mitigate as much as we can against the impact that COVID-19 had. So firstly, we took together a group of individuals, medical professionals, members who worked in the healthcare profession, who we essentially pulled together where if we had any questions or if we needed any advice on how we were going to be doing through COVID. So again, a big thank you to those people who we phoned and said, what on earth do we do in this particular scenario? Simon, do you just want to load all the points up on the screen? It's probably a bit easier. So right through the COVID period, we took almost constant advice from a series of external people. The BMC, the Ramblers Association, the Charity Commission, NCVO. I think Neil has made a girlfriend from Lucy from Sports England, with the amount of times that we've contacted these people through the process. So we took almost constant advice externally on what we should do. Right back in the early days, the trustee boards met a lot. I think at one point we were meeting twice a week to constantly look at the guidance and make sure that we were kind of making the right decisions as of when. And then painfully, but it was fundamentally the right decision to do, the board made the decision to cancel our event programme from April through to July, including for the first time ever, I think, in Outdoor Lads history, Big Spring Camp. Next slide, please, Simon. So some of the immediate, again, actions that we took to sort of protect the charity and the organisation. Do you want to get all the points loaded up, Simon? Perfect, thank you. That's the one. Oh, back you go. So we were successful in getting a reduction in our rent from our Manchester space. So we didn't get it for all the time, but we were successful in getting a bit of a reduction in the rent, which made quite a big difference. We moved 2 of our staff onto the government furlough scheme and have just begun a process of reintroducing our staff team back. So from the moment that we took that decision right up until relatively recently, Liam Russell has been essentially manning Outdoor Lads headquarters from that period to now. And I think we should all give our thanks for Liam, who has taken on quite a fair bit of work and has kept things going behind the scenes. So again, I think just a minute, our thanks for Liam on that one there. We were successful for a Sports England grant, so a big thank you to Dr. Tim, who flagged this up for us. Sports England were offering grants to charities to cover your kind of core costs, so we put in a bid for £7,500, which we were successful for. And again, that was a really good step for us to get, given the fact that we had a sudden massive reduction in income for the fact that we were not running any of our paid events during that period. We've kept a very close eye on our spending and income, and I think that has been something that we've kept a very sharp eye on, that because we can't run any paid events and the impact that's been having that, we've kept a very, very, very close eye on our income. Ted will talk about this later. We produced a series of forecasts looking at best to worst case scenario in terms of the different scenarios that could play out during COVID. And I think it's important at this point to state that Outdoor Lads does have financial reserves. The scenario that we always talked about in terms of why do we have a financial reserve is what happens if foot and mouth comes back and we can't run events for a particular period. So we do have financial reserve that kept the charity and continues to keep the charity going. I think that's quite important to state. Simon, move us on. So this is probably one of the most inspiring, I think, bits of news that Outdoor Lads, I think for me, had during this summer, is that we had over £5,000 of donations from our members. And I think when we put the ability to give donations live, we had never any expectation that we would get that amount of money from our wonderful members. So for those who did contribute, an enormous, enormous thank you from me, the board, members, leaders, everybody. And it's an enormous amount of money that has made a genuine massive impact on Outdoor Lads' finances. So a huge, huge, huge thank you for me. It's a genuinely quite staggering amount of money that we took in. So a big, big, big thank you there. So the next slide, I'm going to hand over to Mr. McEwen, who's going to talk about the impact that COVID-19's had on our events, and then what we've been able to do in terms of our stay in more and our micro events. So Danny, over to you.
Thanks very much, Matt, and good evening, everyone. So obviously quite a significant impact on our annual event programme, as Matt was alluding to earlier, and that others have mentioned. Obviously the primary effect of that was the initial cancellation of our entire events programme from April through to June, initially with the idea that we may have been able to salvage some events, for example, the likes of Big Spring Camp, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But the decision was eventually taken towards the end of March that our hands were essentially tied, which took us to the cancellation of our events as they were. We did continue to take the guidance, as Matt was saying, from the BMC, Mountain Training UK, Ramblers, and I'm sure myself and other trustees and other coordinators were doing very much the same, of keeping eyes peeled on Twitter for other organisations like the Scouts and any other organisation that was vaguely similar to us or had some semblance to us as to how they were responding to the COVID-19 situation, and trying to ensure that we were taking proportionate and sensible action going forward. The big events programme obviously sadly did take a very serious hit, obviously, from this year with the loss of Spring Camp, as we've mentioned. Our initial thoughts were hopefully, I suppose like most people were at the time, hoping that that COVID-19 would be gone in a few weeks or a few months, as it was thought in the first instance, and that maybe we could rescue Spring Camp later in the year as a socially distant summer camp idea. But as is the case, that became clear that was not going to be possible. But we wanted to try and make sure that we had an event ready to go if there was a chance that such a possibility came up. But now we've decided we decided a number of months ago that Spring Camp would move to the original date back in 2021, moving everybody's places from this year to next year, which is great news. If you paid for Spring Camp already, then you've got a place for next year straight away. So hurrah for everybody there. Our other big events in the year were again basically put in a status of being at risk, which was the Halloween event that's normally held at Borwick Hall in Lancaster, near Lancaster, and our North Christmas and potential other Christmas events. And both, sadly, it's the case now that Halloween, as we know, is only next month. That is not likely to happen, or indeed any of our sort of internal accommodation events. So that puts the likely chance that Christmas hostels happening are being very minimal. Although what I would say to things like that is it's very important that we stay positive about the possibilities of these events coming back up and being available, and we'll be ready to react if that does happen. One of the major things that happened from an impact point of view was we launched #StayInMore, which was born out of discussions within different leaders and coordinators and board member colleagues. And it very quickly became a very addictive thing, I think, for a lot of people in a very, very positive way. So starting with some great ideas like, or from very easy and simple ideas like a game of Monopoly online, I think was one of the first events I saw, to cocktail nights and so on. But it then became much more with your regular Friday night quizzes, with lunchtime Zoom meetings using an OutdoorLads Zoom platform that we'd set up ready to go, to a number of other events which I'll show the total numbers of in a moment. And then as we went into July, obviously we started to see the green shoots of new events being possible, with our micro events that started up, which was 6 people as a maximum to comply with government requirements at the time. And we then slowly adapted that offering to increase event numbers as guidance has changed. And again, it was great to see real good positive uptake of those micro events from the leadership perspective. So thanks a lot to all the leaders who committed to putting in a micro event on, and to those members who stuck with us and came to those events, appreciating that those kind of events, some people were quite happy to stay at home, but a lot of people were very keen to get out and about, which was great to see. We've been reintroducing as well our cycling and larger group walks, as I mentioned there, and socially distanced camps, although obviously, as we've seen recently, some of the camps that we had planned for this month have had to be cancelled as a result of the most recent updated guidance, which shows just how volatile the situation can be in terms of its changes and how quickly we are adapting and moving forward with it. Next slide, please, Simon. So this just shows the total number of stay-in more events that we did, which was an incredible 260. You can see by far the largest number of events that we did was a virtual lunch, which I think majority, if not all of them, were done by James Coldry. So thank you very much to James for that. But some other really good sort of cornerstone events that went in, such as Peter and his Friday night quiz, which I know was incredibly popular. I sadly only made it to one of them, but the one that I did do, I was absolutely, I was really had a great time. So thank you to Peter for his effort, and to everybody. As you can see, there's quite a great scope of different events that were done, board games to talks on different things. There was a little spring camp, which was done by Ted. That was a great idea. Get your tent up in your back garden, get the campfire going, and sort of do everything that you would do on a camping event, but just in your garden or in your yard, or even putting your tent up indoors, as some people did. So it was a great sort of way to keep everybody nice and positive. And next slide, please, Simon. So I talked about the micro events and how they were launched in July. So we did 65 of those in total, which obviously is broken down there to 50 lowland and hill level walks. 3 of them were mountain walks, 9 were leisure walks, and 3 were cycling. So by far the greatest ones were those lowland and hill walks, which are a great way to just to space people out in either open countryside or canal walks or whichever, in sort of near and easy access areas, so people didn't have to travel very far. Keeping in line with sort of reasonable guidance available at the time. So a massive thanks to everybody who partook in one of those events or who provided one of those events to us. I think that's over to you now, Matt.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Danny. So obviously, where we're at now is that we do have a number of challenges as an organisation going forward in terms of how we plan and how we think about our events programme. We've had a real amount of success in dealing with a number of our suppliers in terms of moving things into next year without losing deposits, which has been a really important thing for our financial position. But the current state of affairs means that how we plan and how we get sorted for our events in the future is going to be a continuous challenge. And I think that how we plan, where you've got constantly changing regional lockdowns, national lockdowns, is going to be a constant ping pong thing that I think is going to become part of OutdoorLads' way of thinking, especially for the next 6 months. So back towards the end of the summer, we were starting to think about camps. We were starting to think about getting our activities a little bit more ramped up. And as you can see here, the announcement from the government that social gatherings above 6 people were suddenly put into play, which threw a lot of our plans for this autumn up into the air. There is still a fair amount of scrutiny that is going on at the moment in terms of how organisations are responding and behaving to COVID. Our lovely friends at the Oban Times wrote a really titivating article about how we cancelled one of our events. So clearly there has been a bit of media scrutiny about how organisations are behaving during lockdown, especially for events like Outdoor Lads, where social gatherings are taking place. And it's something that we do have to be cautious and mindful of going forward. Next slide, please, Simon. And things are changing live and very, very rapidly. For those people have seen the news today, already a whole series of lockdowns has been announced in South Wales, and it is likely that's been reported that Scotland is reporting tighter restrictions within a couple of days. So these are live events happening quite literally in front of us, and we're always trying to play catch up and trying to get the best advice possible. What I would say, and the question is if people are thinking, how can I help Outdoor Lads during this period, is if you catch something, if you catch wind of something, if you're aware of something, if you're a scout leader and you've got some really good advice that's come through, we're always interested to hear about it. So if you think, oh my God, I picked up something that I don't think Outdoor Lads has picked up on, please do send it through to the office, because we're only aware of what we're aware of. So if you do pick up something and you think, oh bloody hell, Outdoor Lads needs to be aware that this region's been locked down, please do send it through to us, because this information is really important. Simon, next slide, please. So some of our challenges going forward then. Obviously, the local, how we plan our events with this local restriction is going to be a constant challenge. And I think that is just something that we're going to have to accept, embrace, move on. But hopefully that members will become more understanding that events are going to change. It's more likely there might be cancellations or alterations, etc., etc. It's a bit of a cliche, but how do we plan for the unpredictable? So that's going to be a challenge for us. Running our traditional hostel events and big events where you have restrictions on the number of households that can meet inside is going to be difficult. We do not have an answer for this at this exact moment in time of what the programme is going to look like next year. I would have loved to have sat here and said Outdoor Lads is launching our full paid events programme next year. But the point of suddenly taking all the money and getting people's expectations up to then suddenly knowing fair well that we might not be able to run something isn't fair. So that is going to be a bit of a challenge for us. It's worth pondering for a second instant testing. And one of the questions that we asked in the annual survey was, do our members think that annual testing would be more likely or less likely for people to come on the event? And a really interesting score that we had from the annual survey was that 45% of members said that if instant testing became more widely available, they would be either likely or more likely to feel comfortable coming onto a hostel event. Now, given the state of instant testing at this exact moment in time, I would put absolutely no hope or putting any of my hopes on testing as it stands at this exact moment in time, but we do not know what the future is going to be looking for us next year. The PM, in an interesting statement, Mays talked about en masse testing of the population constantly, and something that we might be thinking about going forward into next year may well be, if you received a clear test for COVID-19 within 48 hours of coming onto, would that be possible to do that going into an ODL event? We don't know the answer to that, but it is something that's going to be on our considerations as we do moving forward. But again, something interesting for all of us to think about. Next slide, please, Simon. Some opportunities for us. As Neil said, we have 200 oven-ready day walks to put live when we think we're in a better position to do this. We still hope that our leaders will still be thinking about putting today in more events as what it maybe feels like is hurtling towards potentially another lockdown. I think these events will be even more important to keep us occupied, and where possible, we're still going to continue with our micro events going forward. Simon, next slide, please. So what is the current state of play at the moment? Because there has been a lot of conversation and a lot of chat about what the current events are like. So Last week, myself and Neil had a number of conferences with Sports England BMC, who have confirmed, as it currently stands, their guidance is that as a participation organisation, we will still be able to run day walks and certain events above the 6-person lockdown guidance. And we have had that confirmed, and the BMC, who we are aligned to, have still confirmed as of today that is their guidance. We are limiting our mountain walks to sizes no more than 12 and our day walks at no more than 20. Cycling UK, who we've recently affiliated to for our cycling events, have advised that groups cycle no more than sizes of 6, and we have also aligned to that guidance. As Danny has said, the hostels and the big events in the autumn and winter are out. So there is, just for clarity, there is very little to no chance that we're running any of those events for the remainder of this year. And I think there's one more point, Simon. Camps, there is still a potential scope to limit some of the camps to bubbles of 6. It's slightly tricky to do, but it is within the scope of what we might be able to do. So small camping events with bubbles of 6 is still something that is potentially doable at this stage, but has to be managed incredibly closely. And I think, Simon, there is a last one. Climbing is a very tricky one because especially a lot of our indoor climbing, this is linked to a lot of the individual rules that are applying to indoor climbing centres. So where an indoor climbing centre has a set of rules about who can come into the centre and who can't, we're going to have to align to the individual rules of our climbing centres. One of the things that we've talked about recently is how we're going to manage this, and I know Danny Ballantyne is talking to a few of the coordinators about the best way practically for us to get climbing back off the ground and doing it safely. So that is the current state of play with what's going on with COVID at the moment. If you're watching this presentation in a month's time, ignore everything I've probably said because the guidance will all be thrown up in the air and change. But as of today, this is the current state of play with what Outdoor Lads can do with COVID. Okay.
Usual small print applies. I'm just going to interrupt you there for a moment, Matt. We've got someone with their hand up. I'm just going to take a quick question for you. So, Adam Cooper, I've enabled you. You can make yourself live if you'd like to speak.
Hi, Adam.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So I was going to say, in terms of pre-testing is fine for walks if tests became available and easy, but is there any way, obviously post-event, if any members became positive, had a positive result or had symptoms, whether we would all on that particular event find that out without obviously highlighting who it is that has, and not going through the sort of country track and test and trace system. Obviously, because I appreciate some people may not be out and therefore don't want everyone knowing where or when.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anne. Really good question. Liam, am I okay to hand over to you just to ask about how Outdoor Lads is managing any potential results that come through in terms of the reporting, keeping in mail list, etc., etc.? I can answer it if that's okay, but it's made better an operational bit. Are you okay to answer that one?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Liam.
Okay, very good. So everybody obviously signs on to the event and we have their contact details. I mean, this hasn't happened yet, fortunately, and let's hope it stays that way. So we would need to liaise with that member and find out what their situation is, really. Obviously, we wouldn't want everybody to know who that is, and I believe through the NHS track and trace, you aren't told who it is that you come into contact with.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, liaise with the person involved and understand that, the need for confidentiality. It wouldn't be a group email out asking the person for who's been taken ill.
Great.
That's great. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Adam?
Yes and no. I in terms of, I mean, obviously, if that member just goes to the NHS test and trace, they're going to be asked who they were in contact with. They wouldn't necessarily know our contact details to give the NHS. So it's whether or not whether there's any plans for an in-house type system.
Yeah, so the NHS would have to be in touch with us in that regard, I'd imagine, and we would need to do that in-house, which we can obviously contact people individually and privately and say, this is
appreciated. I just wonder whether the NHS as an organisation would contact an organisation without specific links to it. That's my.
That's a good question. Then I don't know the answer to that bit, but I'd assume that they would indeed be in contact with us if that, they've been given our contact details by the person taken ill, because we would hold the details. Yeah.
But there wouldn't be a barrier. So there's not a barrier to if you have a member tell you they got symptoms, you would automatically be emailing everyone.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Yes. Yes. That's
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for asking the question. I think there's probably a few people wanted to know that. There's just a couple more in there I want to cover before we go any further. There's two on there, which I'm going to turn to Neil and ask for a little bit of help with. They're asking about the numbers of people we're restricting to on events. One person is asking about what we do if we've got an oversubscribed event, and another leader is asking whether or not we can increase up to 30 for day walks.
Okay, so in terms of the oversubscription, there are a handful of events that were postponed earlier in the year that had substantial attendee lists. What we're doing is working with the leader to manage that number down. Obviously, the 20 or 12, depending on type of walk. So if we're talking about a regular day walk, the 20 number needs to include the leader or leaders. So we'll essentially take it on a first come, first served basis, on the principle that everybody will be contacted on that event and given the opportunity to take themselves off, hopefully freeing up some places. But ultimately, the number has to be capped at 20 because that's a call that the board have made. In terms of would we allow groups of up to 30, we are aware of the fact that the guidelines from Sport England do suggest that an organised group such as us can lead day walks up to 30. But what we need to do very carefully is balance the concerns and the ability and capability and the route of an event, and also more importantly, the leader. A number of leaders have already voiced concerns about taking larger groups, not because of the fact that they can't manage it in the circumstances, but primarily because of the scrutiny that they have been subjected to. And unfortunately, a couple of walks have had some scrutiny from members of the public. And on one event, sadly, one of the attendees of a walk actually received some abuse because of the fact that they were in a group over 6. So we need to measure that and manage it in a balanced manner. So the board have decided that day walks will be 20 and mountain walks will be 12, and we don't plan to change that at the moment. In fact, if the circumstances change rapidly with Prime Minister's questions tomorrow, then it's highly likely they'll be going down.
And Neil, there was last one there. Ian's asked about if a leader doesn't feel comfortable leading a walk of more than 6.
We've got no expectation of a leader to lead anything at all if they're not feeling comfortable. If a leader can lead a micro event, which of course is 6 people, including the leader, we're incredibly grateful. Please do whatever makes you feel comfortable. This is not an expectation. The fact that we have this number set is not there to say to you, you have to lead a walk of up to 20 people. I did one myself a few weeks ago and I capped it at 10. It was a comfortable number on a fairly easy route. So please just, do what feels comfortable to you as a leader.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Right, I think we've probably answered a lot of the questions there. So thank you everyone who answered or put forward a question. If we haven't got round to you, we are going to, we'll try to answer any of the questions that are left over in the posting. It's also worth saying we will continue to send out frequent COVID-19 updates as and when the board has it, or as and when we've made a decision on on a policy or on a particular change. Okay, so we're going to move on, if that is okay, to talk about board updates and some of the governance sections. We're very briefly going to talk about some of the activities that some of our newly established subgroups have been working on over the last 12 months. The subgroups were established this year as a bit of a new concept to the trustee board, to bring in expertise from different areas, and also to kind of help a bit of the business of Outdoor Lads move along. So we'll be giving some very short updates in terms of what these groups have been up to. So Danny, I think you are up first of all to talk about, again, very briefly, some of the highlights from the operations subgroup for this year.
Lovely, thanks, Matt. So yes, the ops subgroup was first discussed as one of at one of our board meetings in February this year. The principal idea, which it was initially Matt's idea to bring together a smaller group of trustees with the intention of taking some of the operational decisions away from taking time at a board meeting, which those on the board, colleagues of mine, will know sometimes could run into a number of hours. So the idea being to make some of those decisions away from the board meetings themselves, and then make recommendations to the board for their approval. So hoping to try and cover all points in itself. Some of the highlights of the things that that subgroup has covered in the last 6 and 7 months has been our new insurance arrangements, which Fergus is going to cover a bit further on in these slides. Something that members have been asking for quite some time now is a partial payment system with services such as Klarna or the similar types of payment providers. Planning for the AGM itself, obviously at the time not necessarily planned to be in digital form, but here we are as we stand today. Next year is Outdoor Lads' 15th birthday year, so it's looking together to get some plans together for that wonderful spectacle. Hopefully myself and Neil might take a bit of a front seat on that, like we did at the 10th year perhaps. I'm waiting for Neil to nod or shake his head in panic at me.
I escaped one role, Danny, and you give me another. Thank you.
Obviously the ops group was heavily involved in the event cancellation discussions when that was first becoming a reality as well, which obviously was one of the more detailed levels of our conversations. And also it's the responsibility of the ops group to look at annual membership increases. Now in 2019 we increased the membership price, and the board resolved to look at that every year as to whether an inflationary price increase was necessary or needed at that time to reflect the cost of the organisation. Obviously, in light of what's happened this year, that decision was, of course, postponed until 2021 at the earliest. But obviously, it is a responsibility of the ops subgroup to look at that and to decide whether it is necessary to put forward such an inflationary rise. Thank you, Matt.
Great, thank you, Danny, for that brief update. Right then, Fergus, can I hand over to you to talk about our new insurance provider that has come into play as of this year?
Sure.
So I think there's a few points in this. You just want to load up the full slide.
The points, because we're running quite late as well, aren't we? Whoops, back one. Okay, I think we'll stick to the main basics of this. Over the summer, and certainly early in the summer, we had a problem where our standing insurance provider told us they were moving out of hazardous activities. I don't think we'll run through all the parts where Matt's hair nearly turned grey as several insurance companies fell through on us. He called on Peter Walter to bring some good old-fashioned Outdoor Lads magic. Peter just started the whole thing afresh. So I'm going to look, I'm going to see what they're at. I'm going to ignore all those brokers. Ignoring the brokers allowed him to find a supplier of mutual covers, Activities Industry Mutual, AIM. They're really experienced sector experts in outdoor activities. They're highly recommended. They work with people like the Castle in London, where we've all climbed for years. There's a few new things it's going to mean for us. Some of you, the members, you'll already probably have seen and signed up to the participation statements. And there'll be a whole lot more information, I think, coming for the volunteers. You've seen the first burst of it, but there'll be different changes, and Nick Reed will very much be looking at the processes that will be involved in then. It's just great to have somebody with that expertise to bring it in. Additionally, we've been able to get UK Cycling as a member, so the cyclists and the mountain bike leaders are covered through UK Cycling. We did have a brief lull where cycling and climbing leaders, we suspended the activity, but I think it was probably suspended through COVID at the same time. But we look forward to, I hope, working for a long time with AIM, who are very helpful and constructive organisation, who are happy to answer questions, publish their cover documents online where everybody can look at them. One massive caveat on that, the cover document that online at the moment is the one from last year, and the new one should be up in the near future. But that pretty much covers, so we've got new insurance cover who are very expert in the field, and they should be very supportive to work with. And a big thank you to a lot of people, to the committee that worked with it, to Peter Walter, Mike Rawlinson, Simon Hawthorn, Paul, obviously the other board members, Dave Banks, especially for the Cycle UK, and to Wilco as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that, Fergus. Okay, so I think we move on to the next mini update, which is the comms and marketing subgroup. I believe Danny has got a brief video for us to watch. Simon, am I right to flip over to the video?
I believe actually we're going to go live to Mr. Ballantyne to speak to us.
Oh, we're going live, are we? Oh, that's our first awkward Eurovision moment there. So, Danny Ballantyne, I'll hand over to you quickly to give a brief update, if that's all right.
Thank you. So, coming to you live from Sicily, very Eurovision this year. The comms and marketing group, I think, as Matt and the rest of the board have pointed out, is that we have a wealth of knowledge within Outdoor Lads, and we really want to play upon those skills of people to help us with a lot of the projects that we've got. So earlier in the year, we agreed that a comms and marketing subgroup was necessary to look about how we talk to our existing leaders, how we come across to our new members, and also potential new members. So myself and another few trustees, we've put a programme together of projects that we want to look at over the next 12 months, which is obviously had, it's been put back a few steps with COVID, but we've got a whole load of projects ahead that we can look at to try and campaigns, and we're bringing on board a few of our ODL members that we've spoken to already, and we're going to try and move forward with that this year. I'm going to keep it very brief because I know we're behind with time, so thank you.
So over the last year, I've been looking at ways to try and make it easier for people to interact with Outdoor Lads via social media and instant messenger, whether it be hearing about new events as they go live, or for keeping in touch with other members in your area. While wanting to build on our established social media presence on Twitter and Facebook, there has been a bit of a recent trend for members to move away from these platforms, so I've been looking at what alternative options there are which will help protect members' privacy, especially their contact details, while still remaining accessible for any member who wishes to participate. So for the social media side, we decided to leverage our existing regional Facebook pages and create new regional Twitter feeds, which will automatically have messages posted to them when an event goes live, is rescheduled, or if there's any last-minute space come available, just so we can ensure that as many people as possible get the opportunity to attend an event. Now, if you're a cyclist, then you're lucky enough to also have your own national event feed on both Twitter and Facebook, because this all came from the cycling organisers initially. For more targeted notifications, we've turned to instant messaging, specifically the Telegram platform in this case. It enables us to broadcast messages on very specialised channels to anyone who wants to subscribe to them while protecting the identity of those who are subscribing. This has enabled the creation of new events channels for every specific region, such as North West, South East, South Wales, or for each event type, such as mountain walking, running, or cycling, and even a creation of new sub-regions, such as the South Coast, East Anglia, and Oxford, so to help better serve areas where we have large clusters of members. On big events such as Spring Camp, we'll also have a dedicated channel for important updates such as changes in meeting times and places, or when the pizza stand is open, or anything else we need to help the weekend run smoothly. Where you want a bit more interaction, there's also new member forums created for every region and for specific event groups, such as the South Coast Climbers, South East, London and Manchester, to help try and build better communities which any member can join without needing to expose their phone number or any other personal information to the other people on the chat channel. There's even an Outdoor Lads gardening channel for those of you who've got green fingers, and that one has been very popular so far. For a full list of channels, take a look at outdoorlads.events/notifications mobile, where you can simply tap on the icon for the channel you wish to join on whichever platform, and it'll take you straight there.
Okay, Simon then please, if you are okay to talk about the newly formed E&D subgroup that has come into effect relatively recently?
Yes, of course. So we all know, obviously, 2020 has been something of a year of ups and downs. One of the things which has been brought home to all of us, I think, is about accessibility and indeed equality and diversity and inclusion. One of the things which I put to the board recently and which I'm hoping to kick off after the AGM, and so this is my shout out to you all now, is to put together a member-led subgroup to look at all things equality and diversity. I certainly know that there's an awful lot of lived experience within the organisation, and we know that certainly the outdoors does suffer from a lack of access for a lot of people, be it through their backgrounds, be it through their disability or their socioeconomic circumstances. So I'll be putting out a quick shout out along with the minutes and post-event breakdown to sort of say, if you are interested, do please get in touch via the support at Outdoor Lads email group. Like I say, I want it to be member-led, and I want to support our members in coming up with the best way in which we can improve access to the outdoors, to our activities for everyone.
Super, thank you very much, Simon. I would really encourage people to get involved and take interest in that particular group. I think there is some potential really good work that Outdoor Lads can do in the concepts of outdoor activity. So if that is an interest or that is something that you're particularly get involved with, drop Simon a note, or again, get in contact with the office staff and we'll put you in touch with Simon, who's going to try to get that group off the ground. So thank you, Simon, for that update. Okay, so we now move on to, again, the more formal governance section of the evening, which is, again, talking about our annual accounts and the finances of Outdoor Lads over the last 12 months. So, Ted, if I can hand the virtual talking stick over to you, and we're going to talk through the finance section, if that's all right.
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. I think we can skip that question, the bit on questions, because everyone knows how the questions work now. So those of you who love your accounts and sleep with last year's accounts under your pillow will know that this year's this year's report has different figures for last year than last year did. We in doing these, we discovered that some income that was attributed to last year should have been attributed to this year. So we've restated last year's accounts, so when you look at them, you can make meaningful comparisons. Essentially, in the year ending, so the last AGM voted on some accounts that had £25,000 worth of membership income, which should have been counted in this year. Because if a member joins, say, the time that you join doesn't necessarily overlap with, it's too much detail, sorry everyone. The point in the year that you join doesn't necessarily align with the financial year. So if you join in January, 1st of January, 3 months of your income will go in a year that year, but the other, and you sign up for a year, but the rest of it will go to the next year. So essentially, it's not that we received a different amount of money; it's just where it should get put in terms of the accounts. So you can make comparisons as the years should have been in the ones that have been circulated. I think I've totally over-explained that. Excellent.
Ted, just before you move on to the next slide, it's probably just worth highlighting what the plans are to make sure something like this doesn't happen again for future accounts.
Sorry, I was going to apologise for the fuck up. And yes, so we're going to on a monthly basis look at our accrued and deferred income and assign that on an ongoing basis, so that we don't end up with large chunks moving at year end. So that's going to be working with our accountants to do that. Thank you, Matt. Another amendment. So we we have different ways of counting our membership, whether the website or the database, and so the membership numbers that have been were put in the annual report have been overstated. So we said full membership was 1,620, but it's actually 1,434. Concession members 127. That is still 127. Again, we're looking at our data and our reliability and our reporting, and hopefully we'll avoid that in the future. I make no promises though. So I think you can just put the whole thing up. Our income is down on last year. So we had 268,000 the year just finished, but the previous year was 298,000. Our direct costs are up and our support costs are down. Our net position is we had a £32,000 loss the year just finished, which is a smaller loss than the year before, but it is still a loss and obviously not a position we want to be in. I'm going to talk a bit about some of the details behind that. If we can go on to the next slide, please, Simon. So here's our split of income. We had nearly £5,000 worth of donations, membership income of £58,000, well, just under 59,000, event income of 208,000. So we got a total there at 273. You can see that a massive chunk that the event income makes up. That is if you want to sort of have the high level fast forward bit, that was a problem for us last year, that our membership income was down on the previous year. Can we have the next slide, please? Oh, yeah, we go comparisons. Right, donations about the same, membership income about the same, event income down. So there you go, our total income of 300,000 versus 273. Next slide, please. Our costs. Now, our costs, some have gone up and some have gone down. So you see the split there. Accommodation is obviously a big part of it in terms of the events. Some travel, food, drink. So these are the costs that relate to events. And they went up from 148,000 to £158,000 as we expanded our event program. Next slide, please. It kind of covers again what I've said. So the accommodation was up. Oh, okay.
Back one.
No, that's fine. So basically the event related costs were about 10,000 higher in comparison to the previous year. Next slide, please. Our overheads were down from, there'll be a comparison slide again in a minute, but so they were down. You see that employment costs are a big chunk, 66,000, website costs 32,000, and then a bunch of other smaller bits and bobs. So our total event costs were 147. At a total non-event costs were 147,000. That includes things like insurance, meeting costs, depreciation, which is it's not an actual expenditure, but it's a recognised cost in the accounts of things we've bought in the past, which are now worth less. And if anyone wants to talk about depreciation in more detail, I'm very happy to do that. But here we've got a comparison. You can see employment costs were slightly higher, but we saved money in training, premises, insurance, office costs, all the way down. We had a big loss that we realised on the end of our website the previous year of 28,000. So in total, we had our non-event related costs. We had a reduction of £43,000 year on year in terms of those expenditure. Thank you very much. So you can see there that income 273,000, expenditure 306. Obviously not the place we would like to be. I know we said last year that we try not to do that again, but we have. I will go on to a bit of analysis about that in a minute. Okay, the obvious one. So I think in an attempt, in an attempt to increase our number of events, we booked more hostels and campsites. And what we did is we ended up reducing the occupancy level. So we had more direct costs related to events, but we ended up with an occupancy rate that fell from 91% in the previous year to 80%. So we've ended up not making as much money per event, and so that increased our event costs, reduced event income. It was sort of ameliorated slightly by our fall in overheads, but obviously it's still not where we need to be. And this year is obviously proving to be a total nightmare to manage as well. I'm going to talk a bit about the future in a minute, if we can have the next slide. So members are renewing their membership, amazingly. So I think I started with 12 different forecasts and scenarios that I took to the board as to what might happen to the accounts in terms of if the people we booked hostel accommodation with didn't let us rebook, if members didn't renew their membership. We had a question earlier about whether we might have suspended membership payments. I'll cover that, and that was one of the scenarios we considered, and they were all pretty dire. Fortunately, the government introduced a furlough, and the grants and donations. I mean, there were points when it looked pretty grim. If all members had cancelled their events and wanted their money back, and the people we'd booked accommodation with still wanted paying or wouldn't move to the next year, and then we'd be in a pretty difficult position. I'm a bit Eeyore-ish, I think, sometimes, and so I hugely underestimated Outdoor Lads membership. So I am very sorry about that, everyone, and very grateful. It's been really to look at the bank account and see donations coming in and people keeping up with the membership. It's been absolutely fantastic. I wish my day job, the finances, were holding up better in COVID. We do have a possible. Who doesn't like a bit of Luke Skywalker? Although I possibly have a stormtrooper fetish, but I probably shouldn't go into that right now. So we have 2 years ago. 2 years ago we had a back. 2 years ago at the AGM, I wasn't the treasurer, so I was a member asked a question about sports clubs not having to pay VAT on membership fees, and the previous treasurer started some work on that, which I've picked up along with Liam and Yvonne in the office. And obviously, if it all works out well, I'm going to do a little victory lap and claim all the credit, although actually it's not me who's done it at all. We lost our first case with HMRC, but then they overturned it and we're waiting for a new decision. I think the first inspector who looked at it had a very different, I think they had quite a mean-spirited interpretation of the rules, and that's been reviewed and annulled. I was really hoping to come back to you and say, we've got some good news, but I'm still very hopeful. Essentially, we have to hand over 20% in VAT of all their membership income. And if we are successful in winning the case we're on now, then we will be able to keep 100% of membership income rather than handing it over in VAT. And we might be able to go backwards and claim some from previous years as well. So that could give us more income going forwards and a nice little bonus which we can use to invest and grow the organisation. Next slide, please.
I think that's it, Ted. I think you are. That's it. Okay.
We have some questions.
Yes, just a couple, Ted, which I'm going to fire to you if that is okay. There's a question on what's our cash position as it currently stands.
We have reserves of £70,000, and in our current account we have about £28,500,
Great. So we are in a reasonably cash healthy position.
Yeah, I mean, my view is sort of cash is king, essentially. I think I've said this to the board before. As long as we can keep meeting our obligations at the moment, and we will, if things turn, if things start to take a turn for the worse, then we will have some notice of that in advance, and I think we will have time to react. I mean, obviously, it would leave us with very difficult decisions and some serious conversations to have, but you know, we're holding up for now.
Thank you, Ted. So there's a question around what is the board's long-term plan to rectify. Essentially, this is the second year on the bounce now that we posted a financial loss. Essentially, what is our plan going forward to try to tackle that deficit?
We would like to, well, if we can get the membership, non-VAT applicable, that then gives us a hopefully several tens of thousands of pounds in backdated fees, and also on 20% of membership fees of 60,000. That's going to give us another £12,000 a year. I think we have to manage event costs and our other expenditure carefully, and hopefully keep a bit hold of our membership income.
Okay, great. Let's have a quick look in terms of other questions, because of course.
Can I see the one? I see a question there about membership payments being made available to split across the year without penalty for members with lower income. That is something we're looking at. We have talked about a broader review of membership and how we price ODL events. That was supposed to happen this year. We said at the AGM last year we would, but that hasn't. I think we've been kind of trying to manage COVID for now. But yes, definitely those are definitely on the radar. And absolutely, we would involve as many members as we could in consultations and discussion around that.
Great. Okay. I'm just going to take one or two full questions before we move on, which is, in terms of the overall reduction in occupancy across, was this a drop across all of our events, or did we see particular events that did very badly in terms of what were the patterns? Was it a general overall loss, or were there certain events that we really took a hit on?
There were some events we ended up cancelling because we didn't have the numbers for. I might refer to Liam on that as programme manager. He might have a better hold of those numbers, but if not, I can certainly dig that out and get and include it in the minutes, or send it to someone.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So to answer your question, it's very difficult to work that out. There are some events which we cancelled because the low sale figures on those. And in many cases, that was very surprising as to why it was that particular event that went. There doesn't seem to be a consistent pattern of a certain type of event not selling well. It is just, I think, that there were probably too many event spaces and was spreading too many people too thinly across them, and so some just didn't sell. But I can't say, well, it was camping in the Peak District that was a problem or anything like that, because that isn't shown in the figures.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we probably got through the major questions there. Again, I'm cautious of time, and if we haven't responded to any of the questions that we've posed or any ones that we've answered, we'll make sure that we get those answered in the accounts. So if there's any question, if there aren't any more further questions, and I'm not seeing anything immediate, we're going to move to the approval stage. So as of before, I'm going to ask that we put two people, if people from the audience are happy to both propose and second the accounts. We'll do that in the way in which it was done before, where if we could have someone's name. So Jerry, thank you very much, has put himself forward as the proposer. So just for the minutes, that is Jerry Bateman. And Phil Owen, if you are happy to be the seconder, thank you very much. So that's Jerry proposing and Phil Owen seconding. Hopefully up on your screen, you should have had the little vote box appear. So please cast your ballots. Give that another few moments or so. Excellent. Right then, I think that's probably enough time for everyone to cast their ballot. Simon, if you could put the results up on the screen for me. Okay, so we've got 82% for, 1% again, and 70% abstention. So that is the accounts approved for the financial year for last year. Great, thank you everybody for that, much appreciated. So we move on to the almost penultimate section of the governance then, which is the elections. So, Liam, I'm going to hand over to you as our secretary, who's going to take us through the nominations of trustee for this year.
Great, thank you very much, Matt. Hi guys, so as the returning officer, I'm sort of going to host these elections. We've got 3 people which we are voting on tonight. And for each of these 3 people, the manifestos have been online, and we'll just briefly nip over to that person to do their bit. And then we'll have the vote afterwards, and you can vote for, against, or you can abstain your vote for each of these 3 people. So the first person up, I believe Simon's going to send me to Gavin Bridge, please. So Gavin, if you just want to say your little piece, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hello, right, I'll be as brief as I can. I'm very proud to be part of Outdoor Lads. It's really changed my life over the last few years. It's had a massive impact for the better on me, and I'm really keen to give something back to the organisation. And I think what I can offer is some really good, strong strategic thinking that comes out of my day job, basically. Thinking big ideas, thinking far into the future, ways that we can creatively thrive as an organisation. That might seem really impossible at the moment with everything that's going on with COVID, but I think we've still got to try and imagine how we can still grow, increase membership, develop our reputation. I think it's really important that we listen to our members. I know we do already, but get even better at that, find better ways to hear what our membership want from us so we can remain agile and responsive to them. So perhaps things like regular forums, perhaps we can use Zoom calls for that, perhaps we can increase our website to allow people to have more of an input and a say into the direction that the organisation takes. Just listening to all the stuff about finances, I think it's so important that we keep the money coming into the organisation. Yeah, we all hope next year things improve, but you know, in the long term, the last thing we want is to lose all the fantastic stuff that's been building up over the last 15 years. I don't see why we should. I think we can still grow and become even better than we are. And that's building on things like a sense of community, loyalty to the organisation, how we can look at increasing that. One thing I was thinking that's never sort of come up before, but is there an appetite out there to do more fundraising activity that might improve our reputation externally, perhaps even be a source of income and grow new members through activity on social media? But in all of this, you know, it's really important that we still have fun and that we really enjoy being part of Outdoor Lads. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks Gavin, that was very comprehensive. So Gavin's the only person who's standing tonight who would be totally new to the board, just to let you know. So in a moment, Simon's going to put up the options for voting, and as I say, you can vote for, against, or abstain for Gavin. So Simon, if you could do that for me, that'd be great. Place your votes. Okay, can we see some results, please, Simon? For 90%, that's brilliant. Thanks, Gavin. Welcome to the Outdoor Lads board. Don't forget to come to the after party that I sent you a link for. So then we're going to move on to Stephen Allan. So Stephen is our longest standing trustee and one of our founding members. So Stephen, if I can hand over to you briefly, please.
I always forget that I have to do this bit every time I stand. So my name's Stephen, and I've been, as Liam said, one of the founding members of Outdoor Lads, and I've been on the board since the very beginning, even before we were a charity. I've seen the organisation through pretty much every change and evolution that it's had, all of its difficult times and all of its good times. I continue to bring that expertise to the board to enable the board of trustees to make decisions, and often remind them of the things that we've done in the past. When an idea comes up that somebody thinks may be new, I can tell them how it was looked at previously. In my status as a member of the organisation, I've had a few years where I've not taken part in as many events as I used to. I think I got a little bit of burnout from Outdoor Lads, and in 2020 I decided it was the year where I needed to get back involved in things, and then events have taken over us and stopped that from happening. But you continue to see me on the big events where I'm normally one of the team that's helping facilitate those events. So, Steve and Allan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. So if we can go through the same process, Simon, if you could put the voting up. So that should be with you now. So if you could vote for, against, or abstain, please. It's difficult to know how long everybody needs to do this. All right, then, Simon, can we go with that?
Yeah, just a second.
Excellent. So got 72%. So thank you very much, Stephen. And great to have you still on the board with us. And then we are coming, this will be easier for you, Simon, because we're now voting for you, so you can easily unmute yourself. So Simon has been working as a co-opted board member for about 12 months now, looking at websites and all technical infrastructure like that. So Simon, if you could just say your little piece as well, that'd be great.
Yes, I can. I'll also do a quick declaration. I am not controlling the poll for this one. That's usually best not to do so. My name's not Robert Mugabe. So Dan Byrnes will be controlling the poll for this one in the case of openness and transparency. Yes, so I'm Simon. I think a few people probably have met me at some point in the last decade I've been a member. And if so, I apologise now. I was co-opted to the board back in January, as following on from the extremely large shoes of John Moore, to pick up on managing the day-to-day parts of our relationship with our website provider. In my paid job, I am a project sponsor in the infrastructure world, and I deal with multi-billion-pound projects. So our website is one of the most complex things that I have to deal with. I have been a leader in Outdoor Lads since my third event. The lovely Andy Martin managed to somehow make me do it, and I curse his name for it. And I am also the South East Regional organiser. One of the things I want to do in the coming term with the board is to look at some of our wider governance things, and as you've already heard from me as well, things like our inclusion and diversity group that I want to try and get launched, that member-led group. And I do lots of work with people like Dave Banks and a few others on some of our more interesting data bits, because hell, I'm autistic and I'm a data nerd. There you go. So yes, basically, I should probably have prepared something better to say, because I'm riffing now and everyone's just going, shut up, Simon. So, please.
Thank you, Simon. So, Dan, could you control the voting system for me, please? And there you go. So if you could vote for, against, or abstain, that'd be great. Thank you. So hopefully people have a chance to do that now. Okay, so Dan, if you could put up the final numbers, please. So Simon, it's 85% for, 6 against and 9 abstain. So yeah, welcome to the board as a trustee. Thank you very much, guys. That's it. I'll hand over back to Matt now.
Great. Thank you very much, and congratulations to the 3 who have joined our trustee board. So thank you. So that now formally brings us to the end of our formal governance section. So thank you everybody who casted their ballots in that. We are at the penultimate section of the evening's events. So I'm going to hand over to 2 of our trustees. Jimmy, who you wouldn't have heard speaking tonight. Jimmy looks after the responsibility of our staff, and Stephen, who's just been re-elected back onto the board, is going to very quickly take us through the year's priorities and some of the things that we're going to be focusing on in the next 12 months. So Jimmy and Stephen, if I can pass the virtual talking stick over to you, please.
Great, thanks, Matt. I'm aware that we're behind time, so I really will be very brief with this, and I'm sure people will welcome that. Our 15th birthday year is next year, and we really wanted to celebrate that with something big and exciting, and we should, no matter what. A lot to celebrate. We heard some examples earlier from Dan Barcroft about the very positive impact that Outdoor Lads has on individuals' well-being. And it's done that year on year, so it's certainly something we should celebrate. But how we do it, I think, is unknown at the moment. We're all living with the unknown. So celebrations are uncertain, but what is certain, we must celebrate somehow. I think what we have to do is remain optimistic and ambitious. We could be in a very different position by spring. We may not be. We really don't know. We just have to live with that uncertainty, but commit to celebrating somehow. In terms of the flexibility, that really leads to the next point about running events in line with government guidance. Clearly, we have a duty to do that and a very strong desire to promote the health and well-being of our members. I think it's fair to say that government guidance has been sometimes dynamic, sometimes a wee bit chaotic, but nonetheless, we have been working with it. I think the vigilance to guidance has been great. I think we've already heard about following the British Mountaineering Council, the Ramblers, Sports England, and so on. And it's ever changing. So we have seen great flexibility. All of us in the country have got used to living with flexibility and being flexible. And I think we've seen some of that so far, haven't we? You know, the fantastic initiatives and the imagination that leaders have used with the Stay In More events. You know, great comments earlier, just one on Mike's Saturday night music quiz and the impact that has. So that flexibility is there. But I think we all just have to accept that, you know, we might make plans and they will have to shift or change in some way or other. That's for board, leaders, members. We've just got to live with where we are right now. And I think that leads on to the next point, really, about, you know, looking at our paid events for 2021. You know, how will they look, our hostels, our camps, our big events? Our challenge really is to predict the unpredictable, which is a tricky thing to do. But I think what we must do is continue to plan, accept that those plans, there will be a degree of fluidity in them, that we might need to make adjustments, but nonetheless that we keep to the commitments that Outdoor Lads stays buoyant, fun, and full of optimism for people. So in short, I'm just going to leave those 3 points there and hand over to Stephen.
Well, I'll try and keep mine even briefer than yours, Jimmy. So some of the other things have been, these are more of a recap of the things that have already been pointed out by others in their presentations this evening. So one of the things that we're looking to do is improve our leader assessments. So we've had, with the help of Nick Reed, we're looking to do a review of our leader assessment sign-off criteria. And this is another thing that's come up as part of our insurance review as well, that we need to have a spring clean of some of the areas that we're working on. So we're really looking forward to working more with Nick on a refresh of those assessments. It was mentioned a little bit in the finance section about a review of our pricing model. So at last year's AGM, when there were some questions asked about some of the finances and how we can look to make things more robust for the charity, we said that this year we would look to do a review of our pricing model. we haven't done it this year, but we are going to be looking at doing that next year, but actually doing it more in line with some of the data analytics that we're getting from Dave Banks that enable us to make a more informed decision about how we actually structure our pricing, to make sure that there's stability and sustainability for the organisation. And the final one, and the really exciting one, is the fact that we have got over 200 day walks already prepared with the live button just waiting to be pressed as soon as we have got the all go. So we have got our Back with a Bang, as it is called, and we're looking at doing that in a manageable way once we have a new normal. So watch this space for what's yet to come. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephen and Jimmy. Right then, so this brings us on then to the last formal item of this evening, which is any other business. So this is a chance if anyone has got any questions that they feel they haven't answered this evening, please post it in the comments box or raise your virtual hand and we'll try to answer it. So we've had a question about should we consider making Outdoor Lads a mobile app, or is it too expensive and complicated compared to the website? The long and short answer to that is yes, it is. App development is a very nice idea, but is very expensive to live and continuously maintain. It's something we have thought about in the past, but it would involve us spending an awful amount of money to put it live, so it isn't something that is on the cards at the moment. Okay, right then, I think that is, oh, just back, Simon, just a chance if there's any more. I don't want to rush on it too much. Okay. Right, I think that is any other business then. So well done everybody. That concludes the formal business of this evening. I'm going to hand over to Neil, which I think is always the best bit of any AGM, is to hand over for our volunteer awards. So Neil, over to you, please.
Cool, yeah, absolutely the best bit, certainly my favourite bit, and it has been ever since I've been part of this sometimes crazy-ass organisation. But I think celebrating the hard work that people put in is so, so important. As I started earlier on, leaders are the lifeblood of the organisation. And of course, you guys get to nominate the people who you think really matter. And it's difficult to sift through because it's literally loads and loads of feedback in a spreadsheet. But some people consistently stand out. Some people have a lot of commentary from members who have attended events, and they are definitely the shining stars that sit there amongst the pack. So, Simon, first slide, please. So this person helped me so much before my first event, and I'm not sure I'd have gone, if I'm honest. This person's worth a mention is he really is the hub of ODL in Bristol, organising events and making people feel welcome. And this person explains what events are happening and makes new members feel welcome by introducing them to regulars. And the first person who gets an award this year is Ben Silliphant. And then I was going to kind of like, yeah, round of applause. So we can kind of, some sort of noise would be good here, audience participation. And obviously these guys would usually get a certificate at the AGM, and we'll make sure that they get one within the coming weeks. So next one, please, Simon. So his quiz nights are an amazing success. The Friday night quiz became the highlight of the lockdown week. He made me feel so welcome each week. It was like being in a local pub, 14 excellent weeks. And the quizzes were so fun and well thought out. And I don't think there's anybody who hasn't attended one of these quizzes who would not have recommended that this guy get an award. So this year, I'm very pleased to give one to Mr. Peter Phillips. Thank you. And the next one, please. This person has organised pub and music quizzes during lockdown. The quizzes were valuable and helped me and a lot of members through a hard time. He's been great, and he really went the extra mile to bring people together and keep us sane. And it's so helpful to me being part of a small remote community. And again, someone who has absolutely shone through stay in more events. It's Mr. Mike Smith. It's good I remembered who that was then, wasn't it? And the next one, please, Simon. Thank you for all of the virtual lunch break chats. He's led so many events since lockdown began, probably over 100. He has single-handedly managed the Southwest Walks programme, all while creating and leading events himself, and he always makes me feel welcome and involved. And I'm very pleased to be giving an award again this year, second year in a row, to Mr. James Coldry. And the last one. This person is an exceptionally kind and thoughtful mountain bike leader, very welcoming and going the extra mile with lending his bike to me to get into mountain biking. And he will monitor new members closely to assess their ability and provide encouragement when necessary, raising their confidence and ability. And the final award this year goes to Mr. Mark Rawlinson. So round of applause, guys. Thank you very much. Next slide, please, Simon. As they say, if you're going to create a good slide, then use it twice. But, you know, we would be doing this in person. It's a real shame we're not. But please join me in, you know, congratulating these guys as and when you see them, and, you know, get in touch with them, reach out to them and let them know how special they are to Outdoor Lads. Thank you. And final slide, please, Simon. And that's it. That's me. And that's the awards done.
Great. Thank you very much to everyone who submitted a nomination. I'll just add my thanks to Peter Phillips for the quiz nights on a Friday night. They became a pretty staple event of my Friday and kept me going with a whole series of calamities and a few too many glasses of wine drunk on a certain evening. So again, thank you to all of our leaders who got an award there. Simon, if it's okay, can you possibly take the presentation off, if that's all right, and if I can take control? Danny, over to you, please.
Thanks, Matt. So it's our turn to say thank you to you this time, Neil. Obviously, I know you've just done your slide saying thank you to all those who won an award and to everyone for what they do for Outdoor Lads. But I want to say thank you to you, both as a trustee colleague and as a friend, for what you've done on behalf of the board, on behalf of all of the leaders, the members and the staff for your 3 years looking after our leaders and volunteers, the very core of Outdoor Lads. And you just have to look really for me just how well how much energy you put into just something like the award slides, and the energy you put into that to show basically how enthused you are into the role and how much energy you put into it. So you've left some very big shoes to fill, is all I can say. And it's you know, everything from your sort of helpful comments on the leaders pages to reactivating the newsletter, to, you know, showing the full kind of development you've gone through from not leading to starting leading, doing training, becoming NAS qualified, to becoming trustee, to being in charge of leaders and volunteers. You've gone the whole way. So it's been quite a journey for you. I'm glad you're staying on the board for definite. And you know, it's going to be a pleasure to continue working with you. So thank you very much, Neil. And I'm sure there's probably many other people saying the same.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you again. My thanks to Neil on that one there. So we're almost there, everybody. We've got one final thank you. We've got one final video, which is a bit of a compilation of all the things that we've done this year and the things that we have achieved. It leaves me to say thank you very much for everybody who has helped and contributed Outdoor Lads in the last 12 months. It has been a challenging period, and I won't lie that I have lost quite a few nights sleep over the last 12 months thinking about is Outdoor Lads, what can we do? Are we compliant? Have we got anything in line? Are we going to be here tomorrow, the next month, and the next day after? But as ever with these things, you see the wonderful people and all the fantastic people who get involved in Outdoor Lads, and it does give me some genuine hope that the next 12 months, we hope we will all get through it together. I've always been of the belief that organisations that pull people together and create environments to make friends and have a good time are the best organisations out there. And I think this evening, I hope we've given you guys some confidence that Outdoor Lads will be here next year and the next couple of years onwards. So an enormous thank you from me to everyone who has got involved in the event tonight, and of course with Outdoor Lads in the last 12 months. And on behalf of the board, we all look forward to working with everybody, whatever the next 12 months will throw at us. So on that note, Simon, roll please the final video of this evening. Thank you very much. All right then, gentlemen, thank you everybody for your time this evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us at the AGM. We look forward to seeing you at some sort of ODL event, whether it be online or the next time we can see each other face to face for the rest of this year or into 2021. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.